that sort of leads us into our next issue on the news. This is a poll, a CBS poll, so not a right-wing poll or anything. This is a CBS poll. It says voters say Democrats favor migrants over Americans. So a majority of American swing voters believe Democrats put the interests of migrants ahead of Americans, while Republicans, according to the poll, put Americans first. Basically, the poll shows that 59% of all voters and 61% of independents, so basically 60%, say Democrats will open the U.S.-Mexican border if they keep control of Congress after this midterm election. And 20% of liberals and 27% of Democrats say their party will open the border. So even a third of liberals and Democrats are admitting that their party will just open the border. So this pre-election poll comes after President Joe Biden. Deputies imported at least 3 million foreign workers, immigrants, and illegal immigrants. So you would think, according to what we're told in the media, that, this must mean that if the Republicans are against illegal immigration, surely that means that they're going to lose Latino voters. Well, let's take a look. You might think that. Here it is. Here's the New York Times opinion poll. Here's a headline from an editorial. As the U.S. becomes less white supremacy could simply be replaced by a form of light supremacy in which fairer-skinned people perpetuate a modified anti-blackness rather than eliminating it. So this is the New York Times writing an editorial saying that Latinos voting for Republicans isn't white supremacy, but it's light supremacy. So that's a little weird. So that's according to the liberals, the mostly white liberals at the left-wing New York Times. But let's hear what some actual Latino voters have to say. This is a panel of Latino voters that was put together by NBC and aired on MSNBC, a left-wing network. So let's hear. What do Latinos themselves have to say? So this is the moderator of this panel, and then we're going to hear from a few different actual Latino voters.
Is anyone in this room, had anyone been a former Democrat at some point? Had anyone ever voted for a Democrat? Raise your hand. Okay, so several of you. Why are we suddenly seeing a Republican having so much momentum? What do you all think?
We were already conservatives. We were already with conservative values. It's just nobody noticed. They took us for granted. The Democratic Party left me. I didn't leave the party.
We are not to be taken advantage of. We are not to be assumed that because we're Hispanic, we're naturally going to vote Democratic.
What does the Congresswoman represent for you all?
She is that Latina or Hispanic woman that is saying enough is enough, that our values matter.
Here in the Valley, we are for God, for family, for hard work. She does not only verbalize those things, but she actually lives those things and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, so that was super interesting. This is my, as a non-Latino, observation of something that I don't think the media was ready for. I think it's like I said. I think that the Democrat, that one guy, the one Latino guy, said, "Hey, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me." And then he said, and someone else echoed it, that this party does not do anything for us. They're just taking us for granted. And then in another part that I didn't air, another woman said, "Hey, this, by the way, those Latinos happen to be in Texas, but where that panel was." But one woman says, "Hey, we live in an area where the average income is $32,000, and we're being taxed like crazy. So already we're not making that much money, and then these big government is killing us." And then someone else talked in that panel about how a lot of Latinos are small business people. That's something very common, probably higher than the national norm. and all of these Democrat programs are killing small business. Plus, inflation is killing small business. All this, the COVID stuff, it destroyed so many businesses. I mean, in Los Angeles, 1/3 of the restaurants went out of business because of the stupid COVID lockdowns. So on every level, they're harming business. The schools, Latinos come here, they're here already. And obviously some are affluent, but most are probably middle class. So where are their kids going? To public schools. Public schools are terrible. So Latinos are like, we don't care if we're supposed to vote Democrat, as I understand it. We don't want our kids to go to these terrible schools. Also, once again, to generalize, and as an outsider, I don't think Latinos are super racist. But meanwhile, the schools are teaching all this critical race theory and all this racist stuff, and also so much of the left message is that America is a bad place. And a lot of Latinos are immigrants. And no, they love America. They chose to come here. So when they see, we'll hear a clip from the Bill Maher show, but when they hear the left just attacking America, they're like, no, we're not, that's not us. And then all of this stuff with trans, they don't, probably don't care too much about if an adult man wants to, or woman wants to dress as the opposite gender, who cares? But in places like Los Angeles, the school budgets are going to fund drag shows for children. The public libraries that are publicly funded are also inviting drag queen story hours or drag queen shows that are family friendly or for all ages. And I've seen videos of some of these, and they're very sexualized. It's very creepy. It's very, 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 very weird stuff. It's like a burlesque show. Like if a straight person goes to a burlesque show, there might not be nudity, but it's very sexualized, and it can be fun, and it's super interesting and fun for adults that like that sort of thing to go to a burlesque show. It's super fun for adults to go to a drag show, but because it's so sexualized and innuendo, and it's just way above the ability of children to understand, and it's also very age inappropriate. And I think, back to my original point, Latinos are like, no, we are not down with that. That's gross. So I don't know what else to add, but I think that's why they're leaving, for all of those reasons. It's a perfect storm. And then plus because of issues that are not even Latino specific, stuff like inflation. Inflation is killing, economically killing so many Americans. They can't afford stuff. Housing mortgage rates going up. That's affecting people that want to buy houses. It's just this terrible economy that, gas prices. Who doesn't have the money to buy a $70,000 Tesla? Probably a middle class person, certainly a middle class Latino, or a guy that has a truck, a blue collar guy or gal. They have a Ford F-150. They have a Chevy Silverado. Those are gas powered. They don't have a $70,000 Tesla. They don't have necessarily a private house with its own charging station. They are buying gas. So when gas goes up from $2 a gallon to $4 a gallon, then they're getting screwed. And also when gas goes from $2 a gallon to $5 a gallon, $2 under Trump, and then goes up to $5 a gallon, and then it goes down to $4. And then the Biden administration is saying, look, we brought down gas $1. Well, no, because you brought it up $3, you idiots. They're not stupid. No one's that stupid. No one is that gosh darn stupid to fall for that stupid stuff. Holy cow. And then they say, we reduced the deficit, as if people don't know the difference between debt or deficit. Yeah, they overspent by $3 trillion actually their first year. So their second year, they only overspent based on what they take in, $2 trillion more. And they're like, oh, look, we cut. No, you just didn't overspend as much as you overspent the previous year. So I think Latinos and everyone other than elites that are just so far removed from anything real are just not falling for it. So yeah, let's hear from Fareed Zakaria. Fareed Zakaria is on the Bill Maher show, and he's talking a little bit about the immigrant experience. So we're going to play that next. But Bill Maher is a TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, anti-Trumper. Fareed Zakaria is an anti-Trumper. I don't know if she says anything, I can't remember or not. Maggie Haberman's on this panel. She is an extreme anti-Trumper. They're all liberals. They all hate Trump. They all hate Republicans, and even they have to admit this. Let's give it a listen.
The other bad news, I hate to say it, for the Democrats is immigration. For all the pandering, a lot of people would say they do to immigrants and illegal immigrants, and for all the insulting that Trump has done. Trump won 28% of the Hispanic vote in 2016. And then he insults them for 5 years, and he wins 38% in 2020. There's been a 27-point advantage for Democrats is down from 47. Their advantage now in this election is down 20 points. It's funny because the Democrats thought, oh, more immigrants, it's going to be great for us. It's turning out that it may not be that way. And there are reasons, I think you wrote about it, I think, in your column today, why immigrants are sort of natural conservatives.
You know, part of the problem, I think, and I say this as a legal immigrant, is I don't think Americans have any problem with immigration in general. I think that, obviously some small percentage do, but this is a country very welcoming to immigrants. I've lived that life myself. I think the problem is that they see a system that has collapsed, a breakdown of law and order, a breakdown of rules. What's happening at the border is basically a whole bunch of people, large numbers of whom are not technically really asylum seekers, are just gaming the system and coming there and showing up. And they're not standing in the normal, regular line for immigration. They're standing in the line for political asylum because that gets you in. And once you're in, it's very hard to kick you out. And thank God for it. We're not a police state. But the result is that people look at this and say this whole system has collapsed. It's not based on any rules. It's not based on any. You have just millions of people showing up. And I don't think legal immigrants like that. I think that, in general, I don't want to generalize too much, but I think most of us feel like, we played by the rules. We did it the right way. The idea that you can just show up and boom, you're in.
Right, but I think Democrats think that if we support as much illegal or just have that sense of open borders, maybe not completely, but that's the idea that is sort of put out there, that the immigrants who are here will love that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But they don't.
Right, well, not all, and it's funny because the Democratic policies actually aren't all like that. That's some of rhetoric.
No, they're not.
But if you actually look at what Biden has done, he's kept a number of what Trump's policies in place. It hasn't been a total clean break, and
It's been we're back. It's been pretty much of a clean break. I mean, I'll just tell you this: we had the numbers just came out last month. 2.5 million people illegally came in, which is 1 million more than the previous year, which is almost 2 million more than the average year under Trump. So, I would say Biden did not keep that much. So, let's talk about what we just heard. So that was for Fareed Zakaria on the Bill Maher show, and with Maggie Haberman also chipping in. So Bill starts off by saying, in 2016, Donald Trump got 28% of the Latino vote. According to Bill Maher, he insults them for 4 years, and then he gets 38%. Now, that's where I think the typical liberals get it wrong. It's not insulting to anybody to say, even though Donald Trump might have said some stuff, not in the politically correct way. He said, there are rapists and murderers coming over, the border. So obviously good, and some good people too. So obviously you're not supposed to say that, but everyone, white, black, Latino, whatever, we all know that a lot of criminals and gang members and coyotes and people that could not come over the legal way were coming over. This year, like I said, we have estimated 2.5 million people have come just this year. And I believe this last September, I forget off the top of my head, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I think about 400,000, they estimate came over the border illegally or came over the border as opposed to the normal way. So some of them are going to be bad eggs. Then, Fareed says, the GOP in the U.S., has some white racialist policies. Really? I've never seen one. I keep hearing what a bunch of white supremacists the GOP is. I always say if there was a meeting of the white supremacists in America, they could hold it in a phone booth, if anyone even knows what a phone booth is anymore. For all of this talk about white supremacists and KKKs and everything else, I'm not saying they don't exist, but I've made it this far in my life. I've never met a KKK member. I've never met a so-called white supremacist. I've never met a neo-Nazi. And I've met, I don't know, in my life, who knows? I met 100,000 people in my life. And obviously maybe one of them was. But it's clearly not the epidemic that they said it was. And the border wall, there's nothing racist about it. It's a wall. It doesn't. It's not a wall that lets white people through, and the darker you are, you don't get through. It has one purpose. It's to make everyone that's coming across the border come through an official checkpoint. Fareed Zakaria says the U.S. has, and he's right. He says the U.S. has no problem with immigration, and we don't. The official, not counting all the illegals that come over, the official amount of, and not counting all the refugee programs and stuff, just the normal amount of immigrants that we allow into the United States is a little over 1 million people. So that is more than, and that's every year. That's so, in 10 years, that's 10 million people. But that's more, like no one else comes close no other country comes close to that. The United States allows more immigrants in than any other country on the entire planet. So to say that the U.S. is racist or we don't want to do this, we already allow more legal immigrants. Now, should the number be higher or lower? I think we're pretty saturated on immigrants. Other people think, like Fareed thinks we should have more legal immigrants. And if that's what we decide, that's fine. I don't mind us making the rules, but we should be allowed to have the border rules. What we have under the Biden administration is people gaming the system clearly. They all just say, oh yeah, I'm a refugee. Let me in, because they know if you say that, then the Biden administration will just let you in. Who wouldn't say it? I would do it if I were in a terrible country, but we cannot say, we can't, at some point we could just take 1 billion people in, and we still wouldn't save the whole world. We can't just have, and then even worse is our border. That's just the ones that go across the border, but then get caught, and then they say they're refugees. A lot of people just don't get caught. They're paying $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to a coyote. That coyote's job is to get them across the border and avoid. So a lot of those coyotes are pretty good. So they are getting hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million people over. Who knows? So Latinos have a sense of fairness, just like all Americans. And they're saying, this is stupid. This is dumb. We should control who gets to come here. They should come the legal way. And then of the ones that apply, we pick who's best for our country or under what criteria, who needs it the most. Whatever the criteria is, we get to decide it. And the passport, the path to citizenship, it shouldn't just be, if you're smart enough or clever enough or pay a coyote enough to sneak across the border, then you're a citizen. That's a stupid policy. And Latinos know that. So I think the only one calling out that insanity is the GOP or the Republicans. And I got plenty of problems with a lot of the Republicans, with the Paul Ryans, with the Mitt Romneys, with the Liz Cheneys, with the Adam Kissingers, with the Mitch the Turtle McConnell. All of those guys, I think, are weasels, or a lot of them. But we got some pretty good, decent people too. And even the ones that they make fun of, like, or I wouldn't say even, just on a side note, the ones they make fun of, like the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, or the Lauren Boeberts, or the Carrie Lake, who's running for governor. You could say, Marjorie Taylor Greene is too wacky. You know what? Or Herschel Walker is not that bright, which, I'll admit, Herschel Walker is no rocket scientist. But here's the deal. I'll still vote for him because when it comes to immigration, I know Herschel Walker and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Kristi Noem and Carrie Lake are all going to vote the right way. When it comes to, hey, let's just get rid of election fraud. Who could be against that? But the Democrats, if you talk about it, you're crazy. You're an election denier. Or you're a racist against black people because black people cannot get an ID. Come on, black people can get an ID. It's not racist to require an ID. So the point is, let's just take Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I love, by the way. When it comes to the Second Amendment, she'll vote the right way. When it comes to immigration, she'll vote the right way. When it comes to election integrity, she'll vote the right way. When it comes to First Amendment issues, she'll vote the right way. When it comes to controlling government spending, she'll vote the right way. Name the issue, I'm probably going to agree with her on it. So And I'll take that over, any of these Herschel Walker. Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into complaining about Democrats. Let me just, that was just why I will pick the Republicans. Of course, so the Democrats don't have anything left. They have no, I don't know what the word, they got nothing. The economy is failing under them. The social policies really repulse a lot of viewers or voters. Their immigration obviously is a failure. Crime is surging in the cities. Education is failing, and so on and so forth. On social issues, maybe they got some middle class women that are going to vote for them on the abortion issue. But you know what? I don't think that's going to be a tipping point. So what do they got? They got fear mongering. So here is an actual presidential, highly regarded presidential historian. He's an MSNBC commentator named Michael Beschloss. He actually is a Biden advisor, and he helps Biden write speeches. So his name is Michael Beschloss. This isn't me making up what you're about to hear. This is Michael Beschloss on MSNBC in his own words. So let's hear what Michael Beschloss, MSNBC contributor, has to say. And he's talking about, to put it in context, to frame it, he's talking about the midterms.
And a historian 50 years from now, if historians are allowed to write in this country, and if there are still free publishing houses and a free press, which I'm not certain of, but if that is true, a historian will say what was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system, and it could be a week away.
All right, so that was Michael Beschloss saying we're at the verge of authoritarianism, a brutal authoritarian system. And he went on, he literally said, if Republicans, he was talking about if Republicans win, he said, quote, our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. So, I mean, come on. So that's what they're at now. They're literally, they got nothing. So their new fallback is, we're going to lose democracy. You know what? All Republicans are speaking on that subject. All they're calling for is greater transparency in the ballot. So no, we will not lose democracy if Republicans win. This I can guarantee. I can't guarantee too much, and as I said before, I'm wrong on some stuff, but I'm willing to stake my reputation on the fact that if the Republicans win the midterm, we will not turn into an authoritarian state. We will not lose democracy, and the Republicans will not arrest and kill the children of their political opponents. Now, by this point, you're probably saying to yourself, Neil, you started off talking about immigration, but now you're talking about Michael Beschloss. What does that have to do with anything? I think what I'm trying to say is my underlying point is the world or the country that the Democrats, the left, is trying to create is not an American that anyone that loves America would want. And just because you're going to use racial, I don't know what the word is, but racial division or racial animus to try to further your political aims, as the Democrat Party does, I don't think regular Americans, of which Latinos are part of, I don't think any decent American that loves America, that looks into it, could get on board with the Democrat Party and their left-wing agenda. So that's my thoughts. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.